which is a French football team. Then it stands for, most probably, Pizza Geld. But quite frankly, it doesn't stand for anything. There's a historic story about it. It used to be a personnel agency, and it was PAG, and then we sold the personnel agency, and needed to be somewhere similar in the alphabet, so we picked an S, so it became PSG. Maybe it could have been PSG Securities Group, but now you can't have PSG Securities Group, but also not have made sense. So just quickly who we are. We're a listed investment holding company. By far the biggest part of our business is our stake in Capitec. Then we own 55% of Curo, PSG Consult, largest independent financial services business in South Africa. Tshwane is the largest investment company into the agri sector. And PSG Alpha is where we try and make new investments, and the payer is a new investment company. So we're quite proud of it. PSG is a new South African company. It was founded in November '95, so we don't have legacy issues. At the outset, it was at a value of about 7 million rand, and today it has a market cap of close to 50 billion. And I think through entrepreneurship, we've contributed significantly to South Africa as well. If you look at the wider group, there's about 45,000 people employed in the group. If you go back again to '95, there was nobody. Just in the last year, the group paid 5.5 billion in salaries to these people, and over 3 billion in taxes to the state coffers. So I'll end off with this, but remember, the successful companies contribute significantly to the economy. Just how these businesses have performed. This is what we call the total return index back into the share. And you see PSG is now about 24 years old. If you reinvested all your dividends back into the share, you would have made compounded 42% return per annum over a 24-year period. If you invested in the JSE, you would have made 13.5. And so if you look at the returns of all the companies, the only one that's lagging is Tshwane, and that's because of all the specific problems that the agriculture sector is focusing. That's not drought, issues with land expropriation, and a constrained consumer. But that might change in the next couple of years again. Don't forget to our investment philosophy. I think it's really unique in South Africa. We haven't found a lot of other businesses that try and emulate what we do. So we invest in companies from early stage. All of those businesses on the screen that I showed over you, Capitec, Consult, Curo, were to a large extent started by PSG. So it's not buying into existing businesses that are already there. It's trying to find opportunities and then backing management teams in time to make a success out of it, and thereby contributing to the economy. So there are three elements to it. The first part is you have to go after large markets. We didn't always get this right, but it's as easy to build a company, or as difficult, but most probably is the better way to go about it. To build a company that operates in a small niche than one that operates in a large niche. So if you do get it right, if you are lucky, and I use that word very specifically, there's a lot of luck involved in building businesses. Then you have to go for large markets. Because if the sun does shine and the stars do align, you don't want to be limited in the size you can become. So large markets, banking, healthcare, education, energy, those are examples of very large markets. Then it's got to exhibit, the industry's got to exhibit some sort of market dynamics. For me, there's two elements to it. It's either going to have large, inefficient incumbents, or the industry's got to be fragmented. So there's no point going up and ESG saying today we want to build a hospital group in South Africa. I think there are 3 highly successful hospital groups in South Africa that operate highly efficient. You need to be very clever to go up against it. If you go back early 2000s and you look at how the banks were run, branches opened at 10 and closed at 3. They weren't open up on weekends. They left a significant opportunity for us to go and build a business like Capitec that gives the clients a retail experience. I remember going into a bank and then you have to fill in either a yellow, pink or green form, and you stand in the queue, you get to the lady behind the glass and then she says, well, you filled in the wrong form. Back and then you say, okay, I've got 2 more options, maybe I get lucky. Whereas we said, we'll put the branch manager at the front and they'll ask the person as they come in, what can I help you with? And it created a significant opportunity. Now all the banks are open on weekends and open for longer hours. But there was a significant opportunity. Then again, for us to build a business like Kira, it is essentially, I don't think we're getting education right in South Africa. We make errors along the way, but we've grown since we bought into it from 2,000 to 57,000 learners, and we'll grow to 500,000 and beyond in years to come. Or the industry's got to be fragmented. So Consult came around and said, we'll bring a different model where we effectively team up with these independent advisors and give them a home where they still have a big element of operating independent. And we're now the largest independent advisory business in South Africa. Then we've recently invested into retirement homes. Now, generally, if you think about it, you most probably cannot name a retirement brand in South Africa where you think you would one day want to go and put your parents in if they reach that stage. We're going to go after that market. It's massive, fragmented, and we're going to build a brand that's going to be first to mind if you say your parents reach a certain age that you want to give them an opportunity. And then the last part of the investment philosophy is the engine room. And this is probably, which leads into your theme here about leadership. These are the specific people that you team up within the industry that you go after. And I wish I could stand in front of you, but I can have a couple of meetings with the person and speak with him and engage with him and say, oh, I know this guy is going to make a success of life. Unfortunately, it takes years of walking the path with the specific individual and his team to see whether he is as good as you hope he is at the outset. And unfortunately, if he isn't, then you've got to go and find the next guy to go after. Then I want to talk about a couple of other things here. Sustainability in terms of private business and charity organizations. So there's a lot of drive that corporates have got to do all these social responsibility activities. And don't get me wrong, I think it is fantastic and it should be encouraged. But I have a slight issue with it. I think that's what we pay taxes to government for. They are a centralized unit that can do it significantly better rather than 1,000 corporates trying to do each thing on their own. So most of our spend is done on education in terms of social responsibility. Nelson said a couple of great quotes on it. Education is the most powerful weapon we can use to change the world. Now, this is example. TUT is a non-profit organization. I'm very proud of it. It was started by my wife. Focuses on early childhood development. When it started, there were about 30 kids. Today, there's 160 kids, employs 25 people. But the problem, she says, is now 10 years into it. So big sponsor is PSG Group. But every year, some of her donors come up to her and say, you know, we've supported this now for 10 years. We're going to do something else. And slowly they're disappearing. So I think in another 2 years' time, the only people who are sponsoring this organization would be myself and PSG Group. So there's very little sustainability about it. It's great. It is phenomenal. These kids get exactly the same as any other product, but it's got a longevity problem. Whereas on the same side, you said, let's go and put Kira. We got involved in 2009 at the same time as this one. At that stage, Kira had 2,000 donors. Today, it has 57,000 donors. Because it has a profit incentive, there's no wastage. People get trained, employed, because we make a return. We'll make sure that more schools are going with it. There's a longevity sense of it. It's just significantly better to move forward. So I hope you get the small message that I say from it, that, and this I've seen over and over in terms of charitable organizations. They fail once the donors get another incentive at the end of the day. So this is just Kira. When we got involved, there were 8 schools. Today there's 164 schools. Invested, shareholders have invested 9.2 billion into these schools, and that might even rival close to what government spends on schools the last couple of years. And there you can see the growth in learner number accordingly. And I think it would have been significantly higher if the country hadn't gone into such a constrained nature. And what I can promise you, we spend a lot of time at Kiro trying to think how we can make education cheaper, delivering the same result at a lower cost. That's 57,000. We've got 12 million kids at school. Through efficiencies and IT, etc., I think we can reduce the cost significantly more going into the future and delivering education at a cheaper price than what government can, and still making a return for shareholders. Then the best company in South Africa, I cannot talk without talking about Capitec. It's been a phenomenal success for the PSG Group. So in 1998, we bought 500 or 300 micro lending branches, and then through various sets of luck, we got a whole banking team involved. Those were the founders, Jan Stassen, Michiel Leroux, and I said, this thing doesn't have longevity in terms of being a micro lender. We must change it into a bank. It was really a dramatic experience from a reduction in profits. But then they relentlessly focused on delivering the best retail experience for clients. And I still think today they out-achieve it. It goes with the retail experience and customer satisfaction. If you come into a Capitec branch, you don't sit opposite or even stand, as old guys had to do with friends. You don't sit opposite a consultant. You sit next to him and look at the screen. So everything we input into the screen, the client can see exactly. So it doesn't feel that you ask for a loan and then the computer says no and you don't believe what the computer says. It doesn't like you. But now you can both see it's a fantastic retail experience at the end of the day. And they've kept it so simple. We've swapped the cards from gold to black, but everybody gets a black card. So everybody's got a gold card, and I hope everybody in here does have a Capitec card. Standard Bank as well. But there's no differentiation. There's no to say because you work in you're a gardener, you get the blue card, because you're a CEO, you get the platinum card. Everybody gets exactly the same card. It makes it extremely aspirational at the end of the day. And then as far as the youth project goes, I think this company has definitely led it. Every single person who works in a branch must probably the first job that they get taken out of school or after they studied some sort of a diploma, and we put them through an extensive training. All of them do come down to Stellenbosch for 2 weeks. For many people, it's the first time in an airplane, first time to see the sea, first time to stay in a hotel, because we firmly believe if you have a branch in Messina, then the people working in the branch in Messina must have our culture, but must speak the language of the people in Messina. And this is what's happened. This is the Capitec banking clients, how it's grown from 2007, we had 850,000. By year-end Feb, we had 11 million clients. As we said over here, it's over 12 million clients. So far this year, 200,000 new clients have joined the bank every single month. And this is what it's done into earnings. It's gone from 160 million to 5.3 billion. And the other thing that you must also understand is, along the way, it saved the consumer billions and billions in banking fees. So I don't know if you can go and look what you pay in terms of banking fees. You pay R5 per month at Capitec. Then exploring the theme of the day, it was a fairly complex theme that they sent me. It's a lot to read as well. So it's leadership on the edge. How to harness leadership capital to the advance of society. Now you can say what and people say about this. And then leadership for a better society is about making holistic and integrated business and government decisions that will have a remarkable impact on key societal challenges like poverty, unemployment, housing, and inequality in South Africa. I feel like I'm back in the trick. That's not questions. I look at all of this, and to me it's quite interesting. I agree we have big issues in South Africa. But if we can solve that to a large degree, I think the others will be solved with it. Because I look at the figures, it's at a record high of 29%, and then they say if you truly want to look at the figure, it's 40% or whatever, because there's a lot of people who've given up looking for jobs. So the impact if we can address unemployment, and I mean a lot of this, what I'm going to tell you now, you would have heard a lot. People will become independent. You won't be grant dependent. And it's quite interesting, if you don't have to pay more grants, the government can actually use those taxes and redirect it to different things like education, better infrastructure. I mean, immediately people have jobs. You go out from having to lift up your LSM and you have the social upliftment. I think we will have less crime. And again, because more people are working, the economy will grow and we will get more taxes. And the great thing about this is it will start feeding on itself and will just become a significant better country in the long run. So that, if I was leading the government, I would solve for unemployment at the long term. Now the question is, who must create jobs, government or business? Now the first part is, I clearly think it's business. I come from the business industry. I think we can do lots about it. So what must government do to do it? They must give policy certainty. You know, what I find truly amazing is that in a country where we can't get the most basic of policies right, but we can get things like sugar tax through the door, which has all but destroyed a big part of the farming industry in Natal. When this corruption thing was talked about, I saw Ramaphosa say somewhere between 500 billion and a trillion rand. I mean, that's just not where we should be. They must stimulate the economy and they must cut red tape. I look at a lot of people who try and build small businesses. The amount of hoops you've got to jump through and the constant compliance that you have to do actually makes South Africa a very unattractive place to build businesses and continue to try and build businesses. I'm so unhappy with the red tape, and it's not just government, it comes from all these things like King 4 and the JSE. I would never go out and list another business if we can help it, and we've listed about 16 businesses in the last 24 years. Simply because the compliance cuts away so much from what I think is good business principle. And you know, King 4 says we've got to do all this because it's good corporate governance and it cuts out and it will stop corruption. You know, and you've got to write a policy in there that says you are ethical. I am pretty much sure Steinhoff had a policy that said they are ethical. Because you write it doesn't mean you're doing it. Okay, and then business should focus on being competitive. There I slightly differ with the opinion of people trying to interfere in the economy like the Competition Commission. Because as long as you're competitive and trying to beat your compatriots out there, Capitec didn't win because they were more expensive. They won because they gave better service at a better price. So the consumer actually won. I think if people make too much money, it creates the opportunity for other businesses to come into it. So let's go with the red tape. Then they will create employment opportunities, and I'll get to that just now, the impact of the unions. Because businesses are more effective at allocating capital, and then again this thing starts spinning on itself, and we contribute more taxes, and it becomes better and better. So let's look at some of this. I think government should outline it. Wrote this beautiful thing, the National Development Plan, but somehow we've never quite gotten to do anything about it. I have a lot of sympathy for things like the mining charter and the problems that has happened in the past in the old South Africa. But unfortunately, if you look at something like the mining charter, and this is just the reality, and I feel I can speak quite openly about mining because we don't do anything about mining. You compete on a global space. So it's global companies, Rio Tinto, BHP, Billiton, England. They look, say somebody wants to open up a palladium mine or rhodium mine. They look at everywhere where you've got opportunity to mine in the world, how easy it is to get to the ore that you want to extract, build it into a model, and now you go. South Africa says you've got to give 50% away, 10% of EBITDA. You're not allowed to make profits for 15 years, and then you look at Australia just says come and mine. Russia says you got 10% royalty, and you plug it into the South Africa and you realize no foreigner is going to come and mine because of the charter we put out there. And it's, can you imagine, it's free money. People come and mine here, create massive employment opportunity. You get the retailers coming there, the economy starts feeding on itself, and there we go. But because we want to put so many things onto the mining charter, I bet half the companies just sit there and say, well, then I'm not going to bring my capital to South Africa. So I don't know how that addresses the problems of the past. I apologize for that because normally you would have come up with a better solution than that. But it does solve the problem of creating jobs and giving people an opportunity. Then on some of these issues, I'll start with the NHI. We've seen it that the SOEs generally don't work. Now we want to have another government department that runs this on behalf of all South Africa. We had GEMS, which was the government's equivalent. That didn't really work. So now they want to put everybody on there. And I bet you it's going to be another spectacular failure at the end of the day. I was at an event and they talked about minimum wage. And Fred Robertson was there, I think the owner House of Nomadic, who was part of this business leadership. He said, I understand the principles of minimum wage, but if you enforce it, I'm going to close down House of Nomadic. It's a marginal profit business for me, so it doesn't really make such a big difference to his company. But if you bring it in and it becomes unprofitable, then there's 5,000 people who lose their jobs. So again, I don't have the answer, but in a country with 29% unemployment, I bet you there's a large number of people who rather have jobs than not have a job because the business has to close. The same goes for the B codes. I mean, they're written generically. I agree totally with the principles that they want to instill. Again, this was Java Mabuza who told the story at Eskom. So there's a factory somewhere in South Africa, 2,000 people work there. They generate, or they manufacture cables. They say a level 7 or a level 8. And Eskom's obviously got a massive bee procurement thing going on. And then there's a single black lady who imports cables from the east. And she's under it, she's level 1 BE. So what's better for South Africa at the end of the day? Surely it must be to keep that business intact, the one with employing the 2,000 people rather than the single import where one person works for. So that is unfortunately, it's generically written. Talked about this over-regulation. I think the sugar tax, I mean, that's a great first world tax, but truly we should focus on things, not destroy jobs. And then the Competition Commission, I think if deals are being done, should be done a lot quicker at the end of the day. We can't sit 6 months with companies not being. How much? 5 minutes. Then corruption, I think we've all had a lot of this. I think the people who've been corrupted must be brought to book. I mean, we can't sit with this. If a person in government is found guilty, gets suspended, and then we all forget about him again and he's on full pay. They've got the Zondo Commission, the PIC Commission, recommendations from the public protector. Even if they go after the corrupt politicians, I think as the business community, we're quite willing to throw in a couple of the business columns again, like Marcus Jooste, and go and join each other in a cell. Then this part we really need to get right. This data enterprises. I don't know, remember how many years ago, the government sold 50% of Telkom, went through some tough times, but now Telkom brought in proper business principles, and it's a well-run, successful company at the moment. And I don't know why they didn't use that example to a greater extent with all the other SOEs out there. Remember, Telkom pays government a dividend every year, and they got a piece of money when they originally sold it. All these other SOEs, and I don't even know how many there are, but they all ask for money. You open up the paper and there's more cash flow that needs to go there. If they're well run, they should be getting a dividend. I don't really understand SOA, but they seem to always hedge the fuel in the wrong direction. And then Eskom is 66% overstaffed. I mean, I'm blown away. I don't even know if these figures are right. The average salary is 770,000 per employee. Surely that can't be right. And now we got rolling blackouts again. I mean, it's just totally unacceptable. Number one, I think our lights should be kept on. Should have a lot less employees, and should be paying a dividend to the government. Then trade unions. I think a big issue lies in over here. How can we strike in a country with 0% growth for above inflationary salary increases? And it's every single time, every industry does it. We just make our country less competitive. We're going to get back to it. If we want to get this $100 billion foreign investment, we've got to make our country more competitive. Now, what they do is the protection of a few jobs at the expense of many. That is the job of unions. Don't care about the 29% or the 40% South Africans out there that are unemployed. They only look after their own. And the 40,000 Eskom employees that are not working like they should be is effectively holding the entire country hostage. Protection of jobs at the expense of acceptable output. And here I'll use SATU as an example. As I understand it, SATU does not allow monitoring of teachers. Now, I think that is sad for South Africa. Teachers don't rock up on Fridays, Mondays, and then they are not measured on output at the end of the day. And we can make quite a number of changes should that be allowed. I just want to say noteworthy achievement by government. This came out of a Capitec slide in their presentation. So it's third-party data. I was actually very surprised and happy about it. So what they've done is, since they've taken common control, I mean, the number of formal housing, I mean, that's a massive achievement, gone from 6 million to 13.5 million. And the reduction in traditional housing, so that's very good. The amount of people who got access to pipe water has gone from 7 to 14 million. I think that's a little bit as to the electricity problem. You have 5 million households, we moved up to the electricity grid, and now you've got 16 million. So all is not bad. And this last thoughts on our business. Negative people never create anything. So this guy, Johan Holzhausen, said, jy weet toe maar, as het makkelijk is, het almal dit gedoen. So he said, it's all translated. Every time we get a little bit despondent, he said if it was easy, then everybody would be doing it. This guy runs our consult business. He actually lives in the UK, and we asked a lot of time, why don't we open up something in the UK? He just says every time it's easier to make 20 rand than it is to make £1. I believe that. And this is my father. He built this business originally. That was his mantra every time people came up with problems. Give me opportunities rather than problems. So in conclusion, it is important that what Anton said. You cannot sleep in peace when your neighbor is hungry, and that is what we have in South Africa at the moment. And we've got to create jobs to address it. And successful companies, I believe, should be embraced, encouraged, and pushed in South Africa. Because what they do is they employ, they train their people, they give them skills. Because this is just naturally what businesses do. They educate them because their staff want to be better. They pay the taxes and they give back. So these are principles that we try and instill in all our group companies. And hopefully over the years we can continue contributing to make South Africa a better place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, CEO of PSG Group, or as you said, the CEO of Pizza House.
Yes.
And thank you for sharing your views on ethical leadership in our country. You mentioned a couple of companies that I will not name that are undergoing serious challenges. And I think it is also brave enough that you also, in the write-up that I had to read out initially before your talk, you actually, as a company or EOH, is taking a stand, because I did listen to news, and I remember one radio station, it was KFM, they were actually talking about the challenges that EOH Group is facing. So, well done to you. I'm going to now ask you to please take your seat in preparation for a panel discussion which will take place after our next speaker. Before I introduce him, ladies and gentlemen, please, if you've got your programs, you will note that, or rather, what is going to happen next. Our next speaker is not Mr. Leonard October. Unfortunately, he no longer make it, and we are replacing him with Dr. Tshwane Togo, who will be on from 12 to 12:30, and then we'll have the panel discussion from 12:30 to 12:45, and then we will break for lunch at 12:45 till 1:30. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome my colleague and executive member of the Innovation Hub Management Team, Dr. Tshwane Togo. He is the General Manager of the Bioeconomy at the Innovation Hub Management Company and has extensive research experience and background in biotechnology and general life sciences. Amongst some of his areas of interest are bridging the gap between the laboratory and market and commercialization of indigenous knowledge-based products. In 2004, Dr. Togo had his research, or rather his research was ranked number 4 of the most promising technologies in the world by American Waterworks Association. Ladies and gentlemen, his talk will be on leadership aspects, experience from academia, private and government sector, having led his lectureship job at Wits University to join government and work with employees in municipalities. Dr. Togo, the floor is yours.
To look at a challenge and see a solution requires a mind that can look at problems and see hope. A better way, a new approach. To imagine the impossible and still see a solution requires believing that nothing we face as a country and even as humanity is beyond solving. But an idea, no matter how important, can't reach its full potential if left alone. That's why we have to stand together and give our best ideas a space to grow, to be enriched and reach their potential. We believe that without helping each other, the best ideas, those that change the fate of nations, might never see fruition, and humanity will never grow. That's why we provide those who look beyond problems with the help they need to turn their potential into action, to serve as a catalyst for knowledge interactions that transform emerging ideas into economic opportunities. That's why we guide today so that you can build tomorrow.
Thank you, Program Director, and thank you, Professor, for giving me this opportunity to stand in front of you. I think I feel I am a family, and here I am given the opportunity to share some of my experiences. However, as Prof indicated earlier on about celebrating, I think celebration is the order of the day at the Innovation Hub. As we speak now, your Assistant Dean, Professor Shirley Montaum, received a prize, the IPM Business Leader of the Year. And Professor Shirley Montaum is incubated in the Innovation in Biopark. The runner-up to that award is the former CEO of the Innovation Hub. So that tells you something about leadership that we are doing. But as my colleague indicated earlier on, we don't just speak, we do. As we speak, we collaborated with two members from the Tshwane University of Technology to publish this book. Two of the four editors are from the Tshwane University of Technology. One of the editors is me, but that shows you that there is synergy, and together we can do more. And because you are here today, I'll give you a special code that will enable you to get a 20% discount. I only got one complimentary copy, and this one I'm going to reserve it for my grandmother. So, okay, thank you. So let me start by painting some two scenarios, and this week, as a university that is talking about leadership and all like, I would like you to take it forward. From the health point of view, we are told that a mother must breastfeed for 6 months, and the child must not get any solid for those 6 months. Yet, at workplaces, we've got policies that give a female employee 4 months maternity leave. What does that mean to the mother? What does that mean to the child? When you are talking of developing a leader, when you are talking of a courageous, a confident leader. That's this one. The other one, we know very well that it's a biological process that females undergo rejuvenation every month. when we walk into any of our restrooms, we find cabinets staged with latex for males to take, free for all. And I've never found any stuffed with heads. What? To the wrong room. It could be. It could be. But because as a researcher, I send out questionnaires and they told me that there's none. So, what does that do? Confidence building, and we are building leaders. Think about it. I'll conclude with it at the end. Then, when I read the concept document, it reminded me of my years towards matric. There was a question in geography, human geography, that always goes like, for who and for what purpose does something or something like that? That is how some of the questions that we were asked. And I think this question has got relevance to what we are talking about today. So what I've looked at from the experience that I gathered from the academia, the private, and the government sector, I came up with four factors, four aspects. Being a biologist, at the center of that aspect is the nucleus. The nucleus which contains the DNA. That is the people. Around that, we've got technology, culture, policies, and practices. All these, they impact on leadership. And I'm going to start talking about technology. Not to say this is not in order of importance, but technology, it can do wonderful things when it comes to leadership, when it comes to community development, when it comes to doing our work easier and better. But at the same time, technology can actually do the reverse. And depending on the context, you find that the technology might be applied differently. We heard about Capitec, excellent way of applying technology, standard being same. As leaders, how do we embrace technologies in our organization? If we are not very careful, we will reduce ourselves to watchmen, whereby we are using technology to police our teams. And what that does is, the moment you start to do that, the teams go into the mode of malicious compliance. Do we need people to be present and do nothing? Or do we need people to be where they are and do their work? And this is in view of the issue of the generational preferences, and especially when we're working with our youth. They use technology a lot. And as leaders, how do we change and apply ourselves to ensure that that technology is embraced well and is well used? And besides the fact that it can enable or disable the performance or the achievement of the goals of the organization or your leadership qualities as an individual, there is also a challenge of refusing to adapt as we grow. I remember working with one of my professors. When he did his studies, he never had a computer that had a mouse. And he kept on refusing a computer with a mouse. And at our workplaces, do we allow and embrace technologies that come up from our team members, young as they are? So we need to look into that. And why I'm also talking about, someone poses questions so that it will make relevance to the academic sector. Then the other aspect that I picked up is around policies and practices. The policies are for whom? and for what purpose? Yes, I understand there is a need for us to follow specific processes for uniformity, but there's a challenge that at times we do not create learning organizations, we do not reward failure that comes as a result of a good intent. All we do is to apply punitive measures. As leaders or as aspiring leaders and as people who are going to help in developing other leaders, how do we come up with the policy? Our policy is rigid. Should we not have courage to challenge the status quo? Let me say, what I'm saying is not the view of the innovation company, it's the view of myself as an individual based on the experience that I've encountered, so that tomorrow I will not be asked to write the recommendation for the next job. So I remember one day sitting in a session where we were doing policy reviews, not at the innovation hub, but somewhere else. Then there was an element around bonuses. And they said, anyone who's on maternity leave paid on pro rata basis. Then the question was, oh, so I am now like a bee that self-fertilizes myself so that I can go on maternity leave? What is this that you are talking about? They know it's the police. That is how it is. So, as leaders, we need to challenge the status quo. When we talk of profitability, sometimes we are so much overtaken by the aspect of numbers in terms of money. We as a government institution, the way I look at profitability, it's not the money, but it's the number of entrepreneurs that have created, the jobs that they have created, the improvement of the socio-economic status of the individuals, the smile that I put on the face of a child because of applying science. That's the profitability that we're talking about. So both in the government and in the private sector, there is an element of profitability. So if we are now saying we apply policies to penalize human nature, don't you think that when an employee walks in, he or she is not going to go an extra mile because the policy is saying this? So these are some of the things that we need to look into. Let's look at reporting. Targets. You failed to meet the targets. Therefore, you are going to be penalized. What we need to look at is targets in which organization. Yes, if you fail to meet the target of providing power, you have to be penalized. But if you are working in an innovative organization, I think there's a need to reward failure. Because here's a critical example of how policies sometimes stifle development and improvement of the socio-economic status. I am producing, or we are incubating companies that are coming up with innovative solutions. Let's go to procurement, tender specification. How do you specify a unique solution that is being provided by one company when supply chain requires 3 quotations? So you see how we need to look into. I'm told that I'm left with 5 minutes. Anyway, 10. All right, so I'll fast forward to the cultural aspect. How many of us believe that leaders are born and not made? Or leaders are made and not born? Don't raise your hands, okay? Right. Here is my issue. When I'm talking of culture, I'm not referring to the organizational culture. I am referring to the roots, the upbringing. I listened to the previous speakers. They talked about, someone quoted the father, Someone talked about the mother, the relevance of going into the community. All those things talk to culture. I will give you a challenge as an academic institution. We've got a problem of fossilizing our cultures. And here I'm looking at indigenous knowledge. By indigenous knowledge, I'm not saying black knowledge. It's the knowledge that exists within that specific community. He talked about what the father normally says. What that means is, as we grow, there's a specific way we are being molded by the community within which we are. We specifically identify ourselves by that community. That is what gives us confidence. That is what gives us courage to be able to say, yes, no, I stand for this, I don't stand for that. If you look at almost all those leaders that we have shown today, they've got a specific line where they are rooted. We cannot harvest fruits from a tree that is growing in a cup of water. There are no nutrients. All you could see could be green leaves, but there are no fruits. And you cannot have a leader who is not grounded. If I may ask, from the way we look at strategy, I know some business schools, when they look at strategies, how do you beat this one? How do you stay ahead of the game? And when I go back to my community, we have got this proverb. I don't know if there is anybody who understands Tshwane, where we say, "Atungamira, atori nzira," meaning, if you are ahead, like in the journey, that does not mean you are going to take the road away. What does that mean? Do we apply that when we train our students in strategy? How do we operate business in an environment that believes in communal values as opposed to an environment that values individualism? Those are the things that we need to look into. And you will find that leadership that is anchored with the values of the community, the culture of the community, is bound to be more successful. The challenge that we normally have is, we are saying leaders are born, but we are ignoring that upbringing, thereby subjugating the indigenous knowledge. And then what we have to do is then, as academic institutions, we are sharpening what has been there. So how do we collaborate and encourage the educators, those that are on from the other faculties, to ensure that we are mainstreaming this cultural knowledge, this identity? The problem of the child that is going to be dissociated with the mother 3 months after birth is that emotional strain. Emotional strain that is going to hamper his or her confidence levels. Yes, we've got others that will be successful, but how many? So, how do we work around that? How do we expect to have a leader who is responsive and who is not corrupt if that leader is at war with him or herself? We are already generating a defunct leadership. The body, the mind, the spirit are not aligned. We need to align that before we go to that leadership, to have that leader. If I take all the three plus the person at the center, for those that do cooking, I would equate that to an egg. You cannot, if you boil an egg with a fissure or a crack, as it heats up, the crack widens. What happens to the egg white? It spills out. water gets into the yolk. Yes, you might have boiled the egg, but the yolk becomes watery, and the protein, the egg white, is dispersed in water. That is the typical leader that you will have if that leader is not aligned. And how do we align the leader? By embracing all those aspects and ensure that we have got a leader with a direction, ensure that we have got a leader who has the heart for the people, a leader who would feel that if I make something wrong, it is going to come back to me. Because from where I come from, we also have a proverb that if translated, we say, you never hide an impala in a bundle of grass, the horns will always be out. So if I'm taught that, and I identify with that, I'll be a respectable leader who advances the community goals, develop the nation, and we need more of those. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Togo. Dr. Togo has challenged us to challenge the status quo, to challenge our policies, and really to develop leaders of the future. And I like the last part, Dr. T, that if you're not aligned as a leader, then you might as well be like a cracked egg sipping water. And I must say, selfishly, thank you very much for the Tshwane lessons. As I previously introduced myself, my name is Matona Njona, that's the Xhosa part of me, and the Sapopwanya part of me is my marriage. So seeing that, we all know that Shona, or Zimbabweans, or Shona is the 12th language of South Africa, and Zimbabweans are part of South Africa. Thank you for that, my brother. Dr. Togo mentioned that, or rather has made an offer, a generous offer for those who will be interested in purchasing their books. We'll have the vouchers outside where you registered, where you can get a 20% discount for his traditional indigenous knowledge for the modern era book. Prof. Yonke, please join me, sir, for our second panel discussion.
Thank you, Matona. It's again our chance to ask some questions. We have two very interesting inputs. First of all, a very successful entrepreneurial business development, greenfields development. And secondly, how can we use technology and ideas in terms of creating new businesses? So I'm going to give you a chance again to ask 3 or 4 people to ask you, where is our mic? Is it available? Thank you. Okay, if anybody wants to start with a question, there's a question right at the back there. Okay.
Thank you. Just as follow-on to Mr. Matona, did I hear you correct to say that you have a problem with CSI being done by corporates, that corporates already pay taxes to government and that it should just be a government responsibility? Because, I mean, we're talking to leadership, we're talking about leadership of corporates in the main here. And it's very important, and I really am hoping that I misunderstood you. It's very important to understand the different roles that all of us should play for the development of our country, government, corporates, communities, and everything. So I just want to see if I got you right when you said that, you know, as far as you are concerned, that's supposed to be a government problem and so on.
Okay, thank you for that. We will go to the next question. Another question? Yeah.
Thanks, gentlemen, for great presentations. My name is Tavis Ramasi. I'm very happy that you brought the leadership issue again today, I think, around governance. And maybe, again, because this is a leadership engagement session, just maybe from your point of view, I mean, how do we simplify this? There's absolutely no doubt that corporations, governments, when it comes to leadership, we certainly are moving towards the wrong direction around over-governing. How do we get to the point where we simplify and we get to do things without over-complication? You know, the Americans brought up the salt story after Enron. And I believe on our side, we're moving towards a highly regularized environment that certainly, I'm not sure whether we are fulfilling the requirements of government, certainly the concerns that have been brought up from a business perspective. So just your perspective in that. And Dr. just building that leader, that entrepreneur or government leader that is so focused in impacting the society positively. How do we do it, in Africa, where every single time leadership is about how do I go in there and enrich myself bigger than I can support the society where I come from? What are those snippets or one or two things that are important in building this leader that is firstly focused on the community where I come from and uplifting the environment where I come from? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe a last question. Just, sorry, was there a question there? Sorry. Can you take that one?
Sorry.
Yours, thank you.
Sorry, Prof. I need to jump in.
No, please go ahead.
So thanks very much, Piet and Doctor, for your presentation. I suppose a question that maybe traverses across, from a South African SME perspective, Piet, I understand that through various of the PSG companies, you are quite invested in the SA SME fund. But besides that, are you identifying and investing in SA SMEs, so small to medium term, or small to medium enterprises? And Doc, from an innovation hub perspective, or do you feel that you are doing enough to meet the corporates in bringing these SMEs to where they are looking for them? So I guess I'm asking, is there a good enough link of institutions like the innovation hubs and the incubators, and then almost graduating them across or linking them to corporates who have a clear desire to invest in SMEs? And so I'm interested to hear from Piet's perspective how they invest in SMEs, not just maybe via the fund, and then also how you guys do that matching, or how you try and graduate them across.
In the last question, yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm Denise Naidu. I'm part of the academic faculty at the TUT Business School. Mr. Piet Matan, the question goes to you, but before that to Dr. Toho. I especially like your Impala analogy. Well done on that. Mrs. Matan, in terms of you spoke about the Capitec group, and you spoke about the Cura group. Completely two different target markets. And I want to hear your leadership strategy on how you went about in terms of choosing two different target markets, and with big cash cows and big money earners, as you showed us the graph. Very interested to know that.
Okay, thank you very much. What are we going to do is I'm going to ask Dr. Ferger this time to start with his remarks on the questions that were asked.
Okay, thank you. I think with regards to the issue of government leadership, begs the question as to how do people ascend to leadership positions within government? That's the starting point. Because if we ascend to leadership positions by either being the one who shouts loudest whenever there is a gathering, or the one who worships the leader or the kingmaker, it becomes a problem. And for us, I think there's a need to mainstream moral education from primary school level. But this moral education has to be inclusive in terms of the cultural background. I would be happy one day to find a grandmother telling stories with a moral value to the students so that they would understand that good leadership qualities are not only from textbooks that cross overseas, but they can also come from within. So it's something that is very critical. And again, leaders, who are they accountable to? Are they accountable to the people that they are leading, or they are accountable to the higher offices? If you look in one of our chapters, we looked at that, how we inverted the table, whereby leadership used to account to the people. And if they fail, for them it will be a shame. But today, you find that in most cases, they ignore the people. They are looking one direction. So these are some of the things that we need to inculcate in our education systems to ensure that we attend that. Then with regards to the entrepreneurs, we are doing, but there's always room to do more. And we have got a two-pronged approach. Before I was leading the bioeconomy, the department used to be called the industry development. We need to balance the antagonistic nature of creating a competitor to the corporate and creating someone who would supply the corporate. So we create new industries whereby we look for other investors that are not directly going to compete with the company, but you find in most cases, like in IT, pharmaceuticals, yes, we work with corporate, but we would love to have more and more coming and tap into the value chain and ensure that we develop good suppliers for the higher end market.
Thank you. Mr. Matwan?
I think just on the social responsibility question, no, I certainly don't believe that companies should not spend. I think I ended off my slide that the more successful you become, the easier it is to do social contribution. It's just something I've noticed that, for Kiro to do education type social upliftment is as easy as giving bursaries. If you go to another corporate, it might be more difficult and they have to employ extra people to drive their social themes. I think if the corporates can come together, which would be, and we can pool our strategies from a social impact, we would be a lot more efficient. Complex question, but I do firmly believe that everybody and companies who are successful will always naturally give to the community. Then on the question surrounding what do we do for SME and how we get to Capitec and Kiro as a whole. Remember when I told you about the investment strategy? It's all about early stage investment. So it is actually 100% investing in SMEs. So even when Capitec started, it was buying 300 micro-lending branches, but it was 10 different SMEs that we bought and pooled, and we thought it was better for them to pool their efforts and have a singular strategy than having 10 people go after a similar goal to get to the same end point. The same went for Kiro, so it really had to do with the opportunity set rather than going after something specifically, that we saw the schooling as an opportunity and we used Kiro as a base. So although we did a lot of greenfields, we also went and acquired a lot of schools, and again we centralized the opportunity set. So at its outset, it is SME investing. We've invested in a nanofiber company, a car disruption business. Not all of them make it big, but all of them start as SMEs, and then we are actually have a fast track system to make them very big, which I personally think is some of the most direct investing. On Tabisi's question on how do you simplify governance, I think people have to go back to the heart of governance and see what is good about governance, and you can actually realize by writing more stuff, and that is a policy frameworks, and try and tell people exactly how it works, unfortunately doesn't come to the answer. It just creates more red tape and work for the good guys. The people who actually want to cheat the system will in any way find a way around it. So governance is something that's inherent in your business. You either do it and you've got to open an honest policy, but you cannot go and write it down in a book and say it's now policy, so now suddenly everybody is honest. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, and somehow the world feels that we have to go that direction. I think they're missing the point.
Okay, maybe a last question from you, Mr. Matona. Capitec's business model was quite unique in the fact that it actually creates for the unbanked in South Africa a affordable business model. Was that the intention in the beginning, or did it happen? Just happened through development?
I think it definitely started significantly because it was an easy place to go. Because if I talked about this 10-3 thing, that the banks were open, made it very inaccessible to a big part of the community in South Africa. And they actually had to take almost a day off because the banks were only based in the white sectors, the old white areas, as you can put it like that. So Capitec went out and said there's a big opportunity to take the banks to them, and that's where it started. So we started with the unbanked or the low banked community, and we're actually now migrating to where it's the bank for everybody. And this is where we are. We've long passed the point of being the bank for the unbanked. We're now the bank for everybody in South Africa.
And it seems that there's somebody with a hand who's very eager to ask a last question. Let's do that quickly.
Thank you very much for giving the opportunity. My name is William of AITC. My question is directed to briefly. I think it's aligned to one of the questions that were asked earlier on, but to be more precise, it's in terms of the success that you have shared with us to date, in particular in relation to the children schools we have opened to date. If one looks into the education system of the country, in particular to the TVET sector, numerous efforts have been advance in terms of alignment of the skills programs offered in that sector, program offerings, but quite often than not, one realizes that there is a misfit or mismatch in terms of skills demand from the industry side and what is being offered from the TUT sector in particular. From a government point of view, the TUT sector is a choice for a number of young people, where earlier on it was shared with these big numbers where one speaks about the NEET, neither in education, employment, nor training. So the long and short of my question is that what is your vision or your plan moving forward, looking into this dichotomy or an indictment that we are faced with of unemployment? I heard you did touch a bit where you circled the issue of unemployment. But moving forward, what is your vision or your contribution in that space to bring about, be it a turnaround strategy or to answer on a number of questions? I'm currently involved in directly dealing with skills development and training. I've been in that space for a number of years, over 20 years in that space. And the challenge remains. Perhaps we could share your view moving forward. Thank you.
I can only agree that, everybody must do their bit for training people for the right thing. So, the technical colleges that you are referring to, we are going to start them up again, and even at Kira level, we're going to start with more technical subjects at some of the schools. And obviously, Kira is split, and we've got Stadio, which is a tertiary business, and there, everybody we try and give a degree, it needs to lead to a job. So we're significantly focused on that from that perspective. But I can promise you, if we can get growth in this country back to 3-4%, we'll create a lot of working opportunities and skills training along the way. It's a little bit tough if you train people, but there's little opportunity for them. So get back to what I say. I think government needs to be the catalyst to create opportunities where business can flourish. And the rest, I think the rest of the pieces will fall into place. Nature.
Thank you very much.
So I was about to keep. I thought I was quite scary, but clearly not. I came in studio and nobody paid attention to me. But on a serious note, I do understand that there's still a number of people that would like to engage Mr. Moton or Dr. Togo. So I please urge you to please take the opportunity during lunch to speak to them. I just don't want to keep the rest of the guests or the delegates waiting, and I also don't want, I know when it comes to Professor Pitana, we are slightly late, and as me to us, the South African child, you must respect your elders. So that's why I was putting pressure. So ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of second session, and it is time for us to go to lunch. Lunch is out, obviously, to back doors, straight towards reception and the foyer area. You'll see there are there's colleagues out there who will show you straight forward, just out the doors to the right. And if I may, can I ask that maybe we be back, so as we